Oh, hello, YouTube. I'm back again recapping episode 5 of season 2 of Interview with the Vampire. This episode kind of takes a break from all of the action back in the 1940s in Paris, and it really more so explores the relationship between Louis and Daniel. And it really gets into, the heart of the reason why these interviews ever happened. Like, why would Louis want to have an interview the first time? Why the second time? Why Daniel? These questions that we have that haven't really been answered. So this one digs into that. And before we get into the episode, I'm just going to say there's not a whole hell of a lot of overlap here for me to give a lot of book spoilers. So just briefly here. In the book, Daniel and Louis, they meet at a bar. They go back to Louis's house. They talk all night. Louis ends up attacking Daniel and he leaves. And Armand was not at this interview whatsoever. Armand and Louis had already broken up by this point. But anyway, Daniel, he wakes up the next morning. He's still alive. He sees his tapes are there. So everything that he remembers from the night before really did happen. And he's like, oh shit, I gotta go. He gets in his car and he drives off to go looking for Lestat because he knows where he's supposed to be. And he never ends up finding Lestat, but he does find Armand. So that's just briefly the book's version of events. But let's get into the episode's version of events because, oh boy, there is some drama and it is juicy. So the episode starts out in the present. You have Louis. He's basically just continuing the story about what happened directly after Santiago broke into his apartment. But before he can really elaborate on the story anymore, Daniel points out that he speaks in the third person when he starts getting close to a sensitive topic. I mean, Daniel might be an asshole, but he's a really good listener and he's very clever. He picks up on a lot of things that I don't even think Louis picks up on in his own story. But before they move on with the story, Armand has made lunch plans, so to speak. Essentially, he offers a whole hell of a lot of money to really bad people if he could just outrun him by a certain time. So he's just hunting men, which is kind of the plot of the movie Hard Target, which also took place in New Orleans. I don't know if this is on purpose or not, but that's the plot of the movie. So anyway, this punk kid enters the apartment, presumably about to be Armand's lunch. This also means Armand is going to be out of the house for a couple hours, and Louis and Daniel are going to be on their own. They can maybe talk about subjects that they don't want to talk about in front of Armand, for example. So Daniel takes this as an opportunity to get real with Louis. Daniel knows that the math ain't mathin' when it comes to his recollections of the original interview in 1973. And in particular, the question is, why would Armand have let him live? Louis immediately has an answer for that question, though. He tells Daniel, oh, it's because Armand preserves my happiness, and Armand had a hunch that Daniel's going to be important in the future. It seems like a really canned response, and this will be important later on in the episode. However, Daniel, he still doesn't really remember what happened in this interview outside of just flashes. In fact, he doesn't even really remember if he and Louis ever hooked up even. Like, this is all a big blur to him. So let's flash back to the past for a second to get some answers. Back in 1973, Daniel and Louis, they go back to the apartment in San Francisco. Daniel's this young, handsome man. Louis this young, handsome man. He assumes he's there to hook up. Louis even shows Daniel his coffin, and Daniel assumes this is like a weird sex kink. But he's like, I mean, it's not for me, but like, I'm still down to try it out. Daniel asks him if like, he's the first guy that he brought back for coffin sex because he can't imagine a lot of people are into this. And Louis like, no, don't worry about it. You're the 5th guy I've brought back to do this. And I'm just gonna say that is also really important later on in the episode. So Louis, he breaks out his backgammon drug lord box and he's like, hey Daniel, whatever you want, have at it, have a good time. So Daniel's like, oh, well, if you insist. And Daniel's like, okay, so like now we bang? Like, like what's happening here? Louis like, you can put your shirt back on. We're here to do an interview, right? Like, let's do the interview. So it's official, we have our answer. Daniel and Louis have never had sex. But moving on, since they're not going to be having sex, they might as well do the interview. So, Daniel, he's looking for a tape, and Louis reminds him that he's a vampire. And, Daniel doesn't believe him because he's like, yeah, vampire. Okay, I wonder why you believe that. But Louis just decides to prove it to him. So he, vampire speed lunges at him and flashes some fang, and Daniel freaks the hell out because he's like, what are you doing? Why do you have fangs? Oh my God. However, Daniel's on a lot of drugs and doesn't have a sense of danger, so it's not really enough to make him leave. He pops a tape into the recorder and they start the interview. Louis, he is all in his feels about Lestat. He's going on and on about how big of a jerk he was. And Louis is just word vomiting all of this stuff all over the place. He's not even listening to what he's saying, but Daniel is listening to what he's saying. He picks up on all of the points of the story that Louis does not pick up on. But as perceptive as Daniel is, he's also an asshole. So he keeps picking at Louis and all of the little sensitive spots that he'd rather not touch down on. Louis is just whining about poor him and the choices that he's made. And Claudia left him. Where? But Daniel, he is high on cocaine and Quaaludes, so he doesn't have a sense of danger right now. And he's like, oh my God, Louis, do you ever stop whining? You're a freaking vampire, okay? You can do anything you want, and you're wasting it. You're wasting this gift that was given to you. So Daniel's like, Louis, just give me the gift. I'm not gonna waste it, okay? I know what to do with it. And you know what, me and you, Louis, we have a really good energy together. Why don't we go off and be vampires together? I'm into this. And then Daniel makes the fatal mistake of bringing up Claudia and how Louis only refers to her in the past tense. However, in the show, it is unclear if he even knows he's talking about her in the past tense. He doesn't seem all that sure about it. And this pisses Louis off hardcore, okay? He can't remember things about his past. He's on drugs. It's daylight. Daniel's sheer audacity, all of these things combined, Louis just detonates and he attacks Daniel. However, at this interview in the present time, Daniel now has the gift of hindsight and he's like, yeah, you know what? I was being a little shit. And Louis had every right to kick his ass for it. He gets it. He's not mad at Louis over this, but he does think perhaps killing him would have been a bit excessive. And Louis just blames it on the drugs. He's like, listen, Daniel, I started drinking you and then all the drugs were in my system, double. And that's why I can't remember what happened next. I was very high. But Daniel's like, Louis, are you sure about all of that? Because, oh boy, I have something to tell you and you're not gonna like it. It's gonna feel like I'm ambushing you with this, but at least I'm giving you a heads up, so hopefully you won't attack me this time. And then Daniel proceeds to play the last 9 minutes of the interview that was recovered by the Talamasca and enhanced so they could hear what was really happening while Daniel was passed out. They have 9 minutes of footage that neither of them remember. So we travel back to 1973 to see this tape playing out. Louis, he's draining Daniel. Daniel's not looking so good. Uh-oh. Armand, he bursts in, rips them apart. So here's the situation from Armand's perspective. Louis is really high and being intimate with another man. Armand is livid, okay? You see, Armand loves Louis, to a scary degree. We're talking misery level of love. But that being said, Armand wants to keep Louis because he's in love with him. So he lets him get away with all of this. He lets him get away with cheating with all kinds of guys and getting high all the time. And Armand just cleans up the messes because that's what he needs to do to keep Louis. And this causes them to get into a real mean fight with each other. Ooh, words are thrown that they cannot take back. Oh, it is painful. Okay, so basically, Louis tells Armand that he bores the living shit out of him. He has been bored with Armand for decades. He's suffocated. He can't stand it anymore. And he calls Armand, and I quote, the world's softest, beigest pillow. Which, sick burn, am I right? Like, ooh, that hurts. And Armand responds to Louis, telling him, oh my God, you are the whiniest whiner who's ever whined. Oh no, poor me. I have immortality and strength, and I use both of them to be sad all the time. I'm Louis. Which also, sick burn. So, ooh, they're just cutting to the quick with each other here. And Armand doubles down, okay? He goes on to say, like, oh, Louis, oh, all you ever fucking talk about is Lestat, okay? You are obsessed with him. You have been obsessed with him this whole time. And to top it all off, Claudia didn't even love him back. All right, there you go. Armand said it. Claudia didn't love you back. She hated you, okay? Here you go. And this kind of messes with Louis a lot. And like, he's really drug fueled at the moment. He's having this deja vu. He starts to remember Paris. He starts hearing Claudia calling for him. So he leaves the apartment. And you hear like these doors slam, and Armand, he runs after him. And then you hear like this loud scream on the tape. And that's it. The tape runs out. So that's all of the extra footage they have. What happens after the loud scream? Luckily, these tapes have jogged Louis's memory, so he starts remembering what happened. Is that he ran out of the apartment, and he ran up to the roof of the building, and he walked out into the sun on purpose. And Louis, oh boy, he is getting burned something fierce, and Armand chases him down, pulls him back inside to save him. And this situation kind of does happen in the books, but much later. In the book Merrick, Louis gets to talk to Claudia's ghost, and Claudia basically tells him to fuck off because she hates him. She's like, oh my God, just leave me alone. I don't want to hang out with you. Ew. And this makes Louis a sad sack, and he's like, okay, fine. It's time to die now. So he purposely walks out into the sun, and he gets burnt to a crisp because he was out all day. All the other vampires were asleep. And long story short, Lestat shows up, he gives him some blood, he recovers. And that's like another thing in the show. Like, they show like Armand just being immune to the sun, and Armand is not immune to the sun in the books, okay? He gets extra crispy like the rest of them if he's outside long enough. Like, in the world of the book, some vampires who are either really like ancient or they're just really powerful can survive being out in the sun getting burnt to a crisp. Like, it'll hurt, but they won't die from it. And some vampires have even figured out that if they just stay out in the sun for like a few minutes during the day, it just kind of like toasts them rather than burning them. And it just gives them like a healthy tan so they fit in better with humans. So technically, the sun isn't really like an all-time killer of vampires unless they're very young and weak. But anyway, back in the show, Louis, oh boy, he is super burnt and in a lot of pain because he's super burnt and he has to regrow all of this skin he burned off. And this is the first time Louis is remembering this in like 50 years. So in the present, Louis is just horrified to his very core because there are so many pieces of his history that are just missing. They're just not in there anymore. And he kind of steers Louis back. He's like, Louis, we don't have time for you to get existential right now, okay? We gotta like work to recover all the memories because we have to get the story straight. That's how we find out what happened for real. Where are the blocks? So now both of them are kind of on team, let's figure out what happened. And they're kind of just doing like a paint by numbers recollection where one person says an event and the other person fills in on it and they just keep building upon each other. And the things in the past are so foggy, it's really hard to do this. So like Louis takes Daniel over to his rock garden and they put their feet in the rocks and Louis tells him it'll help his concentration. And here's the thing, like I thought Louis's rock garden was just like an eccentric rich vampire thing, but maybe it's not because Louis knows putting his feet in these rocks helps him remember stuff. Maybe he's been trying to remember things for quite some time at this point. But anyway, there's a lot more past to uncover. So back in 1973, Louis burnt to shit. Armand is scary mad at Louis, like there is nothing behind his eyes. And Daniel's still alive, so he's the perfect person to take it out on because he's not going to do this to Louis. but he has lost it, okay? He just straight up looks apocalyptic. There's nothing behind his eyes anymore. And Armand is just throwing Daniel around. He's taking control of his body just to toy with him. And he drops a little bomb here saying that Louis has brought back 128 men to this apartment to have sex with and then kill. And somehow Daniel, this motherfucker, is the only exception to this. Now, remember earlier on when I said this is going to be important? Louis thinks Daniel's only the 5th guy he's brought here. Louis doesn't remember this happening 123 other times. That's a lot of memories to be missing. But anyway, Louis finds Daniel so fascinating, and he thinks Armand is boring. So Armand's like, Daniel, what is it about you that makes you so interesting? You need to tell me what it is, so I'll be fascinating to Louis. He is lost it. He is full misery at this point. So Armand, he starts picking through Daniel's head, and he's like, oh, like, what about this part of your personality, or this part of your personality? And, you know, Daniel's just being psychologically tortured right now. He's a scared kid. He doesn't know what's going on. And Armand starts telling Daniel a little bit of his story, and he says that his first memory is being run down by slavers, which is close to how the book portrays it. However, it's completely opposite from what he told Louis his first memory was. So, like, how much has Armand been lying about? Armand keeps Daniel in the apartment for 4 days of just torture. And Louis is just begging Armand to help him. He is still super burned. He's like, please put me in my coffin. I am so much pain. And Armand finally obliges. He goes into the bedroom. He puts Louis into the coffin, and he gives him some of his blood, which does help Louis heal. And we don't see this for sure, but I'm pretty sure we can assume that Armand had been withholding this from him for 4 days. He just let Louis suffer when he knew he could have just given him some blood and he would have recovered a lot faster. Damn, Armand, you're a dick. However, these 4 days has given Armand a lot of time to think about things. And he does bring up a really interesting point here, is that why would Louis want to do an interview in the first place? Like, all he has seemed to do during the whole interview is just talk shit about Lestat. What's the end goal here? Oh, Daniel will finally publish the book, and maybe Lestat would just be walking down the street one day and see it in a shop window and go buy it and read all of the nasty things that Louis said about him, and then come track him down to ask him what's up. Like, is Louis doing this particularly just because he's trying to get Lestat to come find him after all of this time? Which actually makes a lot of sense. And Armand is like, all right, fine, I get it. That's what you want. I know where Lestat is. I'll just telepathically call him up, and then you can talk to them. I will be your telephone. Don't worry about it. And so we kind of hear Lestat answer to Armand in his head. Lestat, he seems a little weak, honestly, which would make sense for this time period and like how events go in the book. But he also seems really desperate to get back to Louis. And he asks Armand to tell Louis that he loves him. But Armand refuses to share that with Louis. He just hangs up on Lestat rather than telling Louis that Lestat still loves him. And Louis feels bad for what he's done to Armand, because, you know, deep down in their companionship, they were in love with each other. It has soured quite a bit, but he still, like, has feelings. Like, Louis not a sociopath. So he starts to comfort Armand, and Armand asks him if he's ever going to be able to atone for what happened in Paris all those years ago. And, you know, it's not said out loud, but they both know the answer is no. There's never going to be anything he could do to fully atone for what he did. We will get to that later, I believe in episode 7. So I'll just hold my tongue till then. But this is actually how they broke up in the book, because they were together for a really long time. Louis was never the same after Paris. He basically just lost all zest for life. And Armand kept trying to bring it back and like help Louis get better, and he just never gets better. So Armand tells him where he can find Lestat, and leaves, and that's how they break up all those years ago. In the show, they are not broken up. So Armand tells Louis to rest. He's gonna go clean up this mess that he made. So he goes over to Daniel and he starts his soft boy sociopath routine. He's luring him into this sense of safety and love before Armand inevitably kills him. He's not trying to be violent here. He's making it as soft and like painless as possible. So there is that. There's that for Armand, okay? He's not a vicious killer. He's actually trying to be compassionate here. However, Louis just drank a lot of his blood, and his blood is really like high octane. So Louis finally manages to get up. He has grown back a little bit of skin. He's feeling a little bit better. It worked quick. And he's like, Armand, stop. You can't kill him. Don't kill Daniel. So he saves Daniel and he tells him, okay, if you let Daniel live, I'll stay with you, and it'll be like a testament to our companionship, and we could be together and we could start fresh, which is all Armand really wants. So he capitulates and says, fine, I won't kill him. Louis comes over to Daniel. He starts talking to him, and we don't hear what they're saying in the past, but Daniel remembers exactly what Louis told him, because he went and got his book that he published of all these interviews that he did in the past, and he had written down exactly what Louis said to him word for word, but he just thought it came from someone else. And after their little talk, Louis and Armand, they give Daniel a bunch more drugs, so he's really high. Armand alters his memories, it's basically erasing everything that happened after Louis bit him, and then they just take him out one night and dump him in a drug den. So now here we are in the present, and they know everything that happened between them in the past, where neither of them remembered until right now. And they both have just like this moment with each other where they both know, you know, the pink elephant in the room, the bigger truth to this story. Both of their memories have been erased from the same point on, and they know who did it to Daniel. This is kind of confirming Louis can't remember his past, and that's on purpose. However, speak of the devil, it's the perfect time for Armand to show up, you know, all full from lunch, looking all smug and having a good time. And Louis is like, oh, you know what? Daniel and I were reminiscing about San Francisco. And he's like, Armand, I have a question. Why did you let Daniel live? And Armand says the exact thing word for word that Louis said earlier, that I preserve Louis's happiness, and I had a hunch that Daniel would be important in the future. How would Louis know that exact sentence if it hadn't already been planted in his head? And it's the moment where Louis and Daniel are standing there, Armand standing in front of them, and it's the whole Lucy, you have some splaining to do moment, and then that's just where the episode ends. Oh, it's such a cliffhanger ending. They're just edging us with the drama. It's finally out in the open. We all know Armand had been fucking with his memories. Now it's canon. They're like, yes, he did it. How many times? What else has he done it about? I'm sure the next 3 episodes will be showing like the extent of that. And also this episode really shows like the toxicity in the relationship between Louis and Armand. They have a lot of good stuff with them too. Don't get me wrong. They're in this relationship for so long because a lot of it does work between them. However, it's based on a big manipulation puddle because Armand obviously manipulates Louis. He can change his memories. Louis knows Armand loves him more than he loves Armand. And he does use that to his advantage because the only thing he has that he could either take away or dangle in front of Armand is himself. And Louis does that a lot. He just says like, oh, this is what I need to be happy and stay with you. And then Armand will do it. They both manipulate the shit out of each other. This is unhealthy. So yeah, whoo boy. This was like a soap opera level of drama. And I'm like living for it. Popcorn, you know? It's just fun to like gasp at things and be like, oh, he did what? On that note, let me know in the comments down below, how deep do you think this rabbit hole goes between Armand and Louis? How deep is the deception? I don't know. Let me know in the comments down below. If you like this video, make sure you give it a like. If you want to see more videos, make sure you subscribe. And if you want cool exclusive content, including early access to videos and a book club, you can consider becoming a channel member or a patron. Links for that are in the description down below. And on that note, I'll see you guys soon. Goodbye.